Hello YouTube vintage stereo restorers and collectors. I wasn't going to do a video on this one because I've done a lot of other tuners recently. Just so you can see the dust. This one really cleaned up nicely. This is the Kenwood KT-1000a, which is the earlier version. So there's two KT-1000s, alright? This one was made from about 68 to 72. It was the entry-level tuner in their separate line. Very similar internally to the KT-2500, KT-3500. They're wider tuners, but you know, sometimes you start off and you think it's going to be fairly simple. Okay, so I've done a little work on this one. Been working on it kind of in between other things. I literally around me, I have 4 different ones on the go. Been picking away at this one. The first thing you gotta do to these, this is the preamp board. Recap it, and it has C458 transistors with charcoalized black leads on them. And you know, it worked, it sounded okay. If you grabbed it and just thumped it a little bit, it was going. That's not necessarily transistors. Actually, I figured out what that was later, but everything was good on this board and still working, but I decided to make it sound better because tuners are sometimes ignored. There's not a lot of caps on this board. You can see them. And I just went through and replaced it because they're not hard to get. This is an easy unit to flip back and forth. It had other C458s in it. I'm about this kind, you know. Probably the most common transistor to fail in early 70s equipment across many different brands. So I replaced all the C458s. The other transistors, like the C732s, the leads are still brassy looking. They're different material, and they're working okay. So I recapped. I thought, okay, that's as far as I'm going to go on this one. And I was sitting here listening to it last night, and every time I bumped the table, the volume level changed. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So I got my old orange stick, although it's green. In the phone company, you're given one of these when you started. It was your orange stick. It was for tapping things, and it was non-conductive. But mine was green. So I just kind of went around tap, 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 tap. And the little controller was in this position. When I touched it, that's what it was. So this feeds signal off the discriminator over to the demodulator, and it sets the level more than anything. So that's what was actually doing that. And with this unit, there's actually 6 of these cheesy potentiometers. I haven't changed this one. This one's not problematic, but I need another 50K, and I don't have anything even close. Closest I have is a 2K, so I'll pick one up and change that. So it varies. There's 350Ks and 100K and different. What's the other one? 10K. These were all very oxidized, and even when I sprayed them and turned them, they were still problematic. And here's a challenge. Run into this before. This is the closest schematic I can get for this one. A KR33 receiver, which is a Kenwood. It's the same tuner board, same preamp board. And this board actually was in a lot of models over several years. I was just looking at pictures I had of a KR3130, same board. The TK66, it's this board but split in half. So this is the Kenwood solid state tuner before it went integrated circuits. Except there is one integrated circuit here, but it's really 2 transistors in one. So that one actually, it's kind of an integrated circuit, but anyway. So I actually went, and replacing these can be a bit of a pain because it'll say it's a 50K on this one. Said this one was a 5K, it was a 50K, so it's a typo. you've got to figure out what they do, because I could not find any alignment instructions. I had to figure it out just from where it is in the circuit. So I figured out that VR1 was the FM meter adjustment. So that's not a big deal. You can pull that one out and replace it. If it probably doesn't even have to be replaced. The VR3 is the AM meter. I replaced that one as well. Then the others are very critical. Okay. This one here, VR2, which is off the discriminator, that actually has audio going through it. It would be basically the MPX output of an older tuner would be across that. So that one's critical because just tapping ever so slightly was killing the sound. So then the other one that's critical is VR4. That sets the threshold. This actually has a threshold at which the stereo the MPX decoder comes on. That's set by this. So really low level signals that are very noisy, you got to figure out which stations you want stereo coming on, which not. It's not that sophisticated a circuit. So I just found a couple weak noisy ones and made sure that it blanked those into mono. Otherwise, that's all I have to do with that one. And what's the other one? Yeah, where's it here? VR5. That's in the multiplexer. And what it seems to do is, although you'd have strong enough stations to override this, it would sometimes come on a multiplex and sometimes wouldn't. And what I found is this control is sort of you had to get it at a range. The upper end of you'll find this interesting. The upper end of the dial, counterclockwise, would leave some stations with the multiplex not coming in. The lower end of the dial, too far this way, it would blank them out. So it's right in between. This is the oscillator circuit here. Here's where it actually reassembles. It puts the LR and L minus R together and gives you stereo. So this one here had to be kind of a compromised adjustment where the most stations across the dial came in stereo and came in at the peak. So when you're tuning the tuning meter, it's like this way and then this way. You want the stereo light on the strongest at the center, and that seemed to have an influence on that. That is actually, yeah, it's the second transistor in the multiplexer circuit. And it would happen to be a C458, which I also changed, even though it was working okay. So I had set all of these. This is just stereo separation. This one's not that critical. So then I thought, well, let's check the alignment. So I switched it to AM, no AM at all. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why is there no AM? Well, there's the oscillator transistor. I had to figure out where it was in the circuit. It is Q8, which is that one right there, the oscillator circuit. So it was a C458 and it was dead. So I put in a new circuit, and I ended up, when I was pulling it out, I broke this resistor off. It's just one of those things, you know. So I replaced that one. It was a 47K and that together. Got AM right away. AM is, that one is oscillator and that one is antenna on there. These are for the FM. So then the AM oscillator adjustment, coarse oscillator adjustment is that one, fine is that one, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 tuning slugs. This one doesn't seem to have an effect on AM. So then I went into FM mode, and because it was working so well, you really don't need to put a scope or a signal generator on this. I go to a weak station in the middle of the dial, and I tweaked the FM antenna adjustment, which is that one, and the FM, I'm trying to think what this one does. Oh yeah, this one is for the top end of the dial, this one's for the bottom end of the dial for signal strength. And then these two I don't touch because they're fine oscillator adjustments. Then I just go up the side here. That's the entire, there's quite a few IF cans in this circuit, more so than in newer ones, because this is an all, this is like an early solid state circuit. So you got quite a few coupling cans, but boy, it works good. Then you get up to this one. This is the discriminator coil, this one. So that one, you gotta be really careful trying different stations. You're going for the clear sound. And of course, I did not touch these the last time I got into one of these this particular board. It's the, was it XO50009 board, I believe this is. Something like that. This one is prone to breaking right here. And so, although it's a bigger one, it's prone to break. And then try finding another one. This one here has the most effect on the oscillator, and then you can actually put a scope on this point here, and you make sure that it's running at 19 kilohertz. And I believe this one doubles it to 38.